In this talk, I want to look at the economics, sociology, and demography of marriage. The transfer of wealth at marriage is of ultimate importance in most societies. Among the Trobriands, for example, we're told by Malinowski, instead of having to buy his wife, the man receives a dowry, often relatively as tempting as that of a modern European or American heiress. This fact makes marriage among the Trobrianders a pivot of the constitution of tribal power and in the whole economic system, a pivot indeed in almost every institution. Among the Nuer, the payment or receipt of bride wealth changes a man in a very material way. Anthropologists have distinguished two major forms of marriage transfer and have looked at the functions of such transfers. One of the functions is to symbolize the transfer of rights in a person, jus in personam, that we looked at before, from one group to another, from the wife's group to the husband's. A second function is to set up a marital fund on which the young couple and their children can draw through life. And the third is as a form of compensation or indemnity to a group which has lost a member. If you've brought up a girl until the age when she is productive, and then she's gone away, you need something to fill the hole and make possible other marriages. The two major forms of marriage transfer are known as bride wealth and dowry. Let us look at these two systems. Bride wealth, also known sometimes as bride price or and associated with bride service, is a system in which there is a transfer of some kind of wealth from one group to another group. For example, among the Nuer, in one instance, 40 cattle were paid by the men's group to the lineage of the woman. 20 went, in theory, to the bride's mother's kin, 20 to the bride's father's kin, and then they are split out. So you get a payment from one group, a lineage, to another lineage, to recompense them for the loss of their daughter. It is a lateral transfer. It goes between groups on the same generation. It's not a form of inheritance between generations. Above all, it's the rights in a woman's procreative ability that her lineage is buying. Africans, in one famous saying, put it thus: the children are where the cattle are not. The cattle move one way, and the rights in the mother, in the womb, move the other way. In other words, it's the children rather than the wife which the lineage is purchasing. There's a compensation and reciprocity element, as John Beattie puts it. In patrilineal exogamous societies, bride wealth does have the character of an indemnity. By the marriage, the bride's group has lost a working member and a potential childbearer. The bride wealth is a kind of compensation for this loss. And the wealth that comes in is often used so that other members of the group, the males, can then bring in other women. The distribution of this system throughout the world has been of attention to anthropologists, and it's found that usually bride wealth is found in patrilineal societies. In matrilineal societies, John Beattie says, if bride wealth is paid at all, then it's a very small sum. And it's usually been found in pastoral societies, for example in North and East Africa, sometimes in the North American Indian societies, and in different societies it's paid in different forms, in blankets and coppers among the American Indians, in horses, sheep and camel among the Central Asian nomads. Now dowry, which is found in different parts of the world, is a different institution. It's usually paid from an individual to an individual rather than between groups. From the father, for example, in a Greek example described by Friedel. The father has the ultimate responsibility to collect the dowry and to pass it on from the father to the daughter and her husband. It's paid down to the bride. If there's a divorce, the wife is entitled to the return of the dower. It's a vertical transmission, therefore, between generations rather than the lateral transmissions. And there's no idea of compensation or reciprocity between groups. It's the setting up of a new unit which needs a fund to get them going. That is what dowry is about. The system tends to be found in large-scale peasant societies, whereas bridewealth tends to be in pastoral, nomadic, and African societies. Dowry tends to be in settled agricultural peasant societies. For example, it was common in the Mediterranean regions and in many parts of India. And indeed, Jack Goody and others have put forward the thesis that in no African society so far uncovered does the bride bring a sizable dowry with her. Almost always the groom pays a bride price, whereas in Europe you have dowry systems.